Some villains have henchmen, others have empires, but every now and then one of them has someone who simply loves them. The character I want to spotlight today is Grace Lamont, who stands out not because she's superpowered or sinister, but because she stayed with her man after his fall from grace. While Batman and Two-Face fight over the soul of Harvey Dent, Grace is the one who never stopped believing there was something left to save. And yet, for a character so vital to Two-Face's story, Grace just disappeared, essentially vanishing from the screens almost as quickly as she had arrived, leaving viewers wondering what had happened to her. Not much was ever really disclosed about Grace. Some supporting materials tell us that she's a lawyer and not much else, but she had a significant role in Two-Face's origin story. She was the supportive fiancée of Harvey Dent, who stood by him after his face was disfigured in an explosion. In Two-Face's original comic book origin story from Detective Comics number 66, published in August of 1942, one of the things that drove Harvey Kent, yes, his name was Harvey Kent originally, I promise I haven't misspoken, over the deep edge was his sculptress fiancée leaving him because she couldn't stand to look at his disfigurement. So Grace already has one up on what came before. Grace is Harvey Dent's rock even before his injury. She was there to support him as he campaigned for re-election as District Attorney of Gotham City. As part of this, he launched an all-out war against gangster Rupert Thorne. This entire endeavour was very stressful for Dent, and it caused some suppressed psychological issues to re-emerge. Fortunately, Grace was there to act as his confidant. She could snap him out of his rages and is well aware that he was undergoing therapy. It's well established that Harvey Dent struggled with his mental health, but one of his traits that I don't think gets talked about enough is how quick he is to fall in love. Now granted, we only saw him in 2 episodes before Two-Face, but one of them, Pretty Poison, had a plot point on how he was going to propose to Pamela Isley after dating her for a week. While it's not clear how much time passes between Pretty Poison and Two-Face Part 1, BTAS episodes didn't really follow any specific order, rarely making references to events that had come previously. At the start of Two-Face Part 1, we see that Grace is his fiancée now. This gives me the impression that Harvey Dent moves fast when it comes to the ladies. You can write it off as the needs of the script, sure, but I think it provides us with an additional insight into Dent's psychology. There are a number of reasons why a person may rush into marriage. First of all, it could reflect a fear of abandonment or attachment anxiety. Perhaps Dent fears being alone so deeply that he tries to fast-track intimacy, as if commitment would guarantee the other person won't leave. Marriage as a form of emotional insurance, if you will. It could also be a case of idealization. He doesn't necessarily fall in love with the person so much as the idea of the person that he loves. This stems from emotional immaturity or a disconnect from reality. Maybe Dent imagined he'd found the one multiple times, because that's easier than confronting the messiness of real compatibility. However, in researching this topic, 2 potential causes stood out to me. First, it can indicate a lack of a stable identity. If someone doesn't have a clear sense of self, they may try to define themselves through their relationship. Marriage becomes a way to feel defined. If he was someone's husband, then he must matter. Secondly, as someone with dissociative identity disorder, Harvey Dent may crave stability and feels the need to lean on someone. And who better than a devoted wife? In short, I don't think that Harvey Dent is always thinking about love. I think it's more that he's looking for ways to soothe his own emotional panic. He doesn't have the faith in himself to handle these issues and feels that he can only recover with the help of a good woman. As for who this good woman is, the 2 episodes that she appears in don't really tell us much about her beyond her devotion to Dent. She completely accepts him despite his flaws and wants to be with him. Her only misstep comes when she visits Dent in the hospital when he has his bandages removed, and the sight of his disfigurement causes her to faint, which wasn't exactly the best response for Two-Face's self-esteem. In the 6 months that passed between the end of Two-Face Part 1 and the start of Two-Face Part 2, Grace remained devoted to Dent. She still wept over his photo, waiting for the day that he returned to her. And Two-Face yearns for her too. She represents his former life, order and stability, a life he no longer thinks he deserves. She's so desperate to be reunited with him that she falls for a scheme orchestrated by Rupert Thorne's assistant Candice, where she poses as a detective and offers a tracking device in the event that Two-Face gets in touch. Grace genuinely thinks that this will help Dent, but in reality it exposes him to Rupert Thorne, who attempts to kill them both. It's during this confrontation that Grace gets her moment to shine, as she prevents Candace from braining Two-Face with a big vase. While it's not an elegant fight, it does get the job done. In the original storyboards, director Kevin Altieri had wanted Grace to punch Candace in the face as payback for her deception, but the TV censors said it was too unladylike, so he had to settle for hair pulling. That's about as far as Grace's morals would allow things to go. When Dent plans to shoot Rupert Thorne, she loudly objects. When Batman thwarts him by hurling a box of silver dollars at him, causing him to have a meltdown, unable to see the outcome of his own coin flip, it's Grace that picks up the pieces. At the episode's conclusion, as Two-Face is led away by a doctor, Grace links arms with him. It's clear that Grace is not going anywhere and wants to help Two-Face recover. So you may find yourself wondering why she was never seen again in the show. Well, the answer is quite simple. Writer Paul Dini pitched a follow-up to Two-Face as a direct-to-VHS movie back before they settled on making Mask of the Phantasm. When they chose to go down a different path, Dini pocketed the idea and returned to it in the pages of the BTAS tie-in comic Batman and Robin Adventures, issue 1 and 2. The story was rather fittingly called Two-Timer. Harvey Dent is on the road to recovery. He's been actively taking part in therapy, and his doctors think he has made enough progress that he may soon be ready for an operation to repair his face. This specific line places it ahead of Second Chance in my mind, and it would also explain why Grace wasn't in that episode, but more on that later. Things finally seem to be going well for Dent. Grace says she's willing to wait for him, and his best friend Bruce Wayne is there to support his recovery. It's just a shame that not everyone wanted to see him well again. The Joker, for instance, bored of being locked up in Arkham, sees the fragile Mr. Dent as a source of some entertainment, as he plants the idea that Grace and Bruce may not be being entirely honest with him. What if they're secretly having an affair, and they're just stringing him along to toy with him? Dent doesn't believe Joker, or at least he doesn't want to, but we can see that the idea has rattled him as he angrily scrunches up a newspaper with a headline about Bruce Wayne. To help further his game, Joker has Harley take a photograph of Grace kissing Bruce on the cheek and then passes it over to a gossip columnist, saying that the pair just got engaged. When the papers print the story, Joker goes out of his way to slip Dent a copy, causing him to go on a violent rampage, breaking out of Arkham. One of the things I really love about this sequence is the vibrant colouring. You may find yourself wondering why such neon tones were used, but it's a very direct reference to the original colouring of the Batman graphic novel The Killing Joke, where the Joker tries to prove that you can drive anyone insane after just one bad day. While causing Harvey Dent to descend into madness isn't a difficult task, it goes to show how callous the Joker is. He doesn't have any particular reason to ruin Dent's recovery, other than he was just bored. But with Two-Face unleashed again, nobody is safe. While Batman likes to think that his friend was still in there, waiting to be reached, Robin is less supportive, stating that he believes Two-Face is Harvey Dent's other side, and he will always be there. It's why the Joker found it so easy to trigger his breakdown. While Two-Face said he was able to forgive Grace for being seduced, he couldn't accept the betrayal from his supposed best friend, so he tries to kill him. Grace was outraged by Two-Face's behaviour. Despite the years she had spent waiting for him, he wouldn't believe her when she said there was nothing between her and Bruce. Sure, she had thought about it, even reminiscing with Bruce how things might have been different if she had dated him instead of Harvey, but she had not betrayed him. Usually, Grace was the only one that could get through to Two-Face, but no longer. When Batman arrived on the scene, Two-Face used Grace as a hostage, threatening to throw her into the sea. Grace broke free by stabbing Two-Face in the face with the jagged end of the coin, which left him exposed for Batman to knock him out. It's important to note that Batman had never struck Two-Face before because he believed he was still his friend and that he needed help. However, Robin's words about how Two-Face was Dent and wouldn't be going away clearly lingered in his mind as he struck him. When the police arrive, we can see Two-Face trying to talk to Grace, but in an inversion of Two-Face Part 2's ending, Grace firmly walks away with tears in her eyes. Their relationship is over. Grace only made one other appearance, very briefly showing up in Batman and Robin Adventures 22, where a gangster threatened her life in order to get Two-Face to hand over some secret documents from his time as the district attorney. There's a scene that I really enjoy where Two-Face has made a replacement coin from a quarter after the gangster took his real coin away. Two-Face spends the quarter at a payphone to call Grace and warn her that trouble was on the way. Once he was satisfied that she was safe, Two-Face then smashed the payphone to get the coin back. I thought that was a very nice touch. So that's what happened to Grace Lamont. I know that some people turn their noses up at these tie-in comics, saying they can't possibly be canon. But personally, I think that anything that can fit should be counted, especially if it's worked on by any of the BTAS creative team. Dini's involvement in Two-Timer is a stamp of authenticity in my mind, and it doesn't contradict anything in the shows. The only question that comes to mind is where it fits in with the continuity. It's definitely after the first 65 episodes of BTAS, but is it before or after Second Chance? Given that Dent says he's almost ready for facial surgery, which they attempt to do in Second Chance, I'm inclined to have it take place before. This would also explain why Grace wasn't at the hospital when Dent was getting his face repaired. To be honest, it doesn't really matter all that much. Let's leave it to the Watchtower database to determine the formal watching and reading order. At the end of the day, Grace was outraged by Two-Face's behaviour. Despite the years she had invested in trying to bring Harvey back to the light, for her, this wasn't just about betrayal or broken promises. It was about a man she had loved so deeply that she was willing to walk beside his demons, hoping he'd come back to her. But the tragedy of Harvey Dent is that he doesn't believe he deserves healing. When Grace leaves, it's not with a scream or a slap or a final dramatic speech. She just walks away. She finally realises that she can't carry both halves of Harvey Dent any longer, and that no amount of love can fix someone who won't fight for their own recovery. And so Grace, this soft-spoken, resilient woman who once represented everything Harvey stood to lose, becomes one more casualty of his war with himself. We remember villains for their schemes, their monologues, and their monstrous transformations. But Grace reminds us of something else, that behind every tragedy in Gotham, there's somebody left behind, somebody who tried to help. She wasn't a vigilante, she wasn't a rogue, she was just a woman who loved a man who was lost.
Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send $1 or $2 my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. And special thanks to my channel members. Everyone who was a member at the time of this video's creation is listed on the screen right now. If you want to see your name amongst all these wonderful people, join the channel now.
Next time, I'll be back on Monday, where I'll return to my Beware the Batman poll to talk about the villain that came in second place, the kleptomaniac Magpie. And then next Friday, I want to talk about one of the most comically absurd figures in Batman the Animated Series. He was a complete loser, yet he had the distinct honour of being known as the man who killed Batman. It's Sidney Debris, aka Sid the Squid. Hope to see you then.